Hi, I'm McFarlane Muleli. This teacher guide is about the Mindset Learn series of lessons called Editing a Text. The purpose of this guide is to assist you with a series of lessons and show how these lessons link to the curriculum. We also discuss ideas for using the lessons with your learners. You may want to make notes, so have a paper and pencil ready. This series of lessons exposes learners to the importance of editing. Without editing, learners will continue to create pieces of writing riddled with errors that are easily avoidable. More specifically, a variety of common errors that often appears in learners' writing are highlighted, and learners are then supplied with the necessary tools with which these mistakes can be corrected. By being able to supply learners with the necessary editing tools, the series should help to develop more confident authors and editors of creative and transactional texts. There are 8 lessons in this series. Why edit? Identifying ambiguous statements, spelling and punctuation, the importance of punctuation, different types of sentences, making sentences perfect, identifying apostrophe and concord errors, the use of the pronoun and other common errors. The lessons in this series all address Learning Outcome 3, Writing and Presenting, and Learning Outcome 4, Language. These lessons address the following assessment standards. They reflect on and evaluate own work, considering the opinions of others and presenting final products, and also use structurally sound sentences in a meaningful and functional manner. Keep in mind that the learning outcomes and assessment standards for each lesson are stated at the beginning of each video lesson in the series. In addition, the lesson outcomes linked to these lessons are also provided in each lesson. Many learners fear writing essays, and this is often due to a lack of self-confidence. Because they lack the ability to correct their own work adequately, they resign themselves to the fact that their work is going to be returned to them with lots of corrections. The purpose of this series of lessons is to equip learners with the ability to be their own teachers, to correct mistakes and perfect writing before it is handed in for assessment. In this series of lessons, we approach the task of editing step by step. The learners are cautiously introduced to common errors so as not to overwhelm and exhaust them at the thought of having to correct their own work so extensively. To this end, learners are provided with basic sentences instead of longer pieces of writing for them to correct, so as to help improve their confidence. Once you as the teacher feel that learners understand the grammatical concerns more fully, paragraphs and longer pieces of work can be tackled for editing. Editing is an invaluable skill, as it is one that learners can carry with them throughout life. The ability to be critical without being destructive is a further skill that should be developed in the classroom during the course of the series of lessons. If possible, you will find it useful to watch the videos by yourself before you show them to your learners. This will enable you to make notes of places to stop the video and ask questions or even have a discussion. It will also allow you to see when and how you could best incorporate the video lessons into your learning program. You could also think of activities that you could do with your learners before or after watching the videos. To get learners interested in these lessons and to keep them involved, you will find it useful to get them to do the tasks and activities presented in the lesson. These tasks are linked to the learning outcomes given in the lessons and to at least one assessment standard in the curriculum policy. Completing the tasks will give both you and your learners evidence of how well they have achieved the lesson outcomes. The tasks can also be used as part of a learner's record of progress towards the assessment standards for each grade. Now, let's have a more detailed look at the lessons in the series and how you can use them in your classroom. In this lesson, learners are introduced to what editing is and why it's important. More specifically, learners are exposed to simple spelling and punctuation errors to edit and to correct. Specific steps are provided to help making editing as a simple process as possible. As your learners watch this series of lessons, it would be useful for them to develop an editing checklist to remind themselves of common errors and how to correct them. This lesson would be a good place to get learners to start compiling this list. This lesson shows learners a specific cause of grammatically incorrect writing: ambiguity. As an extension to this lesson, ask learners to think of jokes or find cartoons that rely on a double meaning to create humor and compare these to funny extracts from texts such as newspaper headlines where there's an unintentional ambiguity. Explain to them that there is a difference between intentional double meanings such as puns and jokes and unintentional ambiguities. This lesson focuses on teaching learners how to identify common spelling and punctuation errors. Specific errors that are addressed include typographical errors, the comma splice error, and errors arising from the existing of homophones and other similar words. After viewing this lesson, be sure that learners add these errors to their editing checklist. A possible extension exercise to the lesson's task is to get learners to edit each other's writing. Provide the learners with a list of common errors to look out for and have them identify and possibly correct where necessary. In this lesson, learners look at punctuation symbols and how they are often used incorrectly. Next, learners look at how punctuation marks should actually be used. Specific punctuation marks that are addressed in this lesson include the colon, the semicolon, the hyphen, and the dash. Like all the lessons in this series, this lesson should be reinforced by asking learners to consider examples from their own writing where they have made the error that is discussed. In this lesson, learners are shown what constitutes a sentence. Learners are also taught to differentiate between specific types of sentences, namely the simple sentence, the compound sentence, the complex sentence, and the compound complex sentence. To ensure that learners are able to apply this knowledge to real texts, ask them to find an example of each type of sentence in a magazine or newspaper article. Learners are required for this lesson's task to correct a number of sentences by adding either a verb or a conjunction where necessary. Ensure that learners are aware that to correct these sentences, the sentence that they create also needs to be complete. A possible extension exercise is to ask learners to identify what type of sentences they are once they've been corrected. In this lesson, learners continue to look at sentences. Learners are given problematic sentences and are shown how to edit them so that the meaning becomes clear. This lesson is particularly relevant in that it addresses specific sentence structure errors that are regularly made by learners in their own writing. A good idea is to spend some time going over many different examples of conjunctions with learners before attempting the task. Possibly supply them with a list of all too commonly used conjunctions that are not to be used while completing this exercise. This lesson focuses on the apostrophe and concord errors. Challenge learners to go through a piece of their own creative writing to see if they can find and correct an apostrophe and concord error. You may want to place a permanent list of these errors on the wall in the class so that learners are constantly reminded of what errors to avoid in making their own writing. In this final lesson, learners are shown how to implement the effective use of various types of pronouns in their writing. Learners are also expected to do a number of errors that commonly occur in their writing, such as incorrect pronoun use. For this lesson's tasks, learners are provided with a passage that they have to edit. The errors that occur are not specific to this lesson, but require knowledge from the entire series. By the end of this series, learners should understand the importance of editing as part of the writing process. It is necessary to instill in learners the knowledge that editing is not something that is done after the fact, but is rather an activity that is part of the writing process. Learners should constantly be encouraged to share their work with their peers and welcome constructive criticism and even feedback. This will enable them to see editing as a learning process rather than a debilitating one. We hope that you will enjoy using these lessons to help your learners become better writers. If you would like more information about how to use these lessons or even lesson notes for each lesson, please visit our website on www.mindset.co.za. Goodbye and thank you.